My name is Irene Whitaker. I am 67 years old, a retired literature teacher who spent years trying to show teenagers that words matter. Tonight, I am alone at my dining table, watching my only son get married from a glowing screen propped against a stack of essay collections. I always imagined I would be in the front row, holding a small bouquet. Instead, I am here, staring at the wedding through a live stream. The guest list was limited. The event was about image, not family. I have been told I can watch online like extended relatives. Extended relatives. I carried him for 9 months. I stayed awake with him through fevers and heartbreaks. Now I qualify as extended. The ceremony begins. White chairs, hydrangeas in soft blue, a string quartet. My son Lucas stands tall in a navy suit. His fiancée, Bryn, floats into the frame. Her parents sit in perfect posture. They do not look toward the lens. They do not consider the mother watching from 1,000 miles away. I won the lottery years ago. I saved $80 million as my son's wedding gift. It was meant to be a surprise. But now I sit here, gripping the chair, wondering when my name stopped being enough. At least I still have the sealed envelope addressed to him in my drawer, and the letter from my late husband inside. If you are here with me, stay. If you have ever been overlooked by someone you love, you know why every second matters. The officiant asks everyone to sit. The guests laugh quietly. I mute the stream, because the sound of joy can hurt when you are not part of it. I rest my hand on a book about mothers and sons. My fingers trace the embossed lettering. The officiant thanks family. He mentions Bryn's parents first. Then he thanks all the family who could join us today. I wait for my name. Lucas does not look into the camera. The silence is a statement. A pressure forms behind my ribs. I do not cry. Respect is not a tip. Lucas and Bryn exchange rings. The stream freezes mid-smile. For one heartbeat, I imagine he is thinking of me. Then the pixels shift. Messages flood the screen. Hearts, congratulations. A river of strangers praising two people who forgot the person who gave them everything. They kiss. The guests applaud. Hydrangeas shake with the breeze. The live stream cuts to champagne. I close the laptop. The screen goes black, leaving only my reflection. I think about the number on the check inside the envelope. $80 million. A gift I no longer trust in the hands of people who measure worth by appearances. I glance at the clock. Time moves forward whether we are invited or not. Somewhere in that venue, they are dancing under fairy lights. The house feels too big tonight. Outside, the hydrangeas bloom beneath the porch light. Grief taught me to notice small connections. Ambition taught him to overlook them. I imagine the reception. Speeches that overlook roots while praising branches. Toasts lifted by hands that never turned. Homework pages late at night. I pick up the envelope. I whisper the number like a confession. I wanted it to mean joy. But love should not be bought, and dignity should not be rented. I slide it back into place. If you are still with me, stay. Stories like this do not end here. Some truths walk quietly until the right moment arrives. I remember buying that lottery ticket on a Wednesday. I pressed my hand to my heart and promised I would protect the blessing. I imagined celebrating together. I did not imagine this. Sometimes I wonder if Lucas forgot what matters. I taught him to aim higher. Maybe he learned the chase, but not the staying. I stand at the window. The moon hangs low. I press my palm against the glass, remembering the warmth of Lucas's hand when he was small. Some gifts need to be earned. I look at the chair where he once did homework, tapping a pencil while I reminded him to think. Those moments felt permanent. I did not realize how easily permanence can slip away. I picture Bryn's family giving speeches, thanking everyone who helped shape their daughter. They know how to perform closeness. I wonder if anyone there knows what Lucas's laughter sounded like when he was 5, or how he begged me to read his favorite story 3 times in a row. The moonlight spreads across the floor. My heart beats steady, not with anger, but with clarity. This is not about punishment. It is about placing value back where it belongs. When I muted the stream earlier, I noticed how loud silence can become. It is not empty. It echoes everything that should have been said. Unspoken thank yous, missing glances, a chair that should have had a place card with my name. That silence is what teaches you who sees you and who only sees what you can provide. People think the worst thing is anger. They are wrong. The worst thing is becoming invisible to someone you raised. The worst thing is watching your love turn into something background, something assumed, something no longer valued. That kind of forgetting does not happen in a moment. It builds one dismissed gesture at a time. Tonight is the moment it became impossible to ignore. My phone is on the table. I take one slow breath, then I reach for it. Begin the paperwork, I say. My voice does not tremble. Tonight, my son forgot me at his wedding. Tomorrow, he will remember who I am. I never expected a miracle on an ordinary Wednesday. I had just finished grading essays, the kind covered in red ink and half-formed thoughts. My shoes ached. My back protested every step. But I stopped at the corner store on my way home, as I did every week, to buy one lottery ticket. Just one. I liked the small thrill of imagination more than any real expectation. The clerk recognized me. "Another test of luck?" he teased, scanning my usual bottle of mineral water. "Another test of discipline," I replied, handing him the money. I never spent more than the price of that ticket. Rules matter. Habits matter, even in hope. He laughed as the machine spat out the slip. "Good luck. Teach." I tucked the ticket inside my wallet next to a picture of Lucas at age 12, grinning with a chipped tooth he refused to fix until senior photos. I missed that version of him, the one who didn't know how to hide sincerity. The night was cool when I stepped outside. Leaves rustled. I drove home humming an old song my husband loved. Caleb always believed in little traditions that turned into anchors. He never said much about money, but he always said enough. At home, I made myself chamomile tea and sat in the living room, feet propped on the ottoman. I turned on the TV, letting the noise wash over me. Numbers flashed across the screen. I skipped the first few, not expecting anything. Then I looked closer. 5 numbers matched. My pulse jumped. I waited for the 6th. My breath halted. It matched. For a moment, the room felt unreal. I stood up slowly, staring at the ticket. Then I laughed once, sharp and disbelieving, before covering my mouth. The mug nearly fell from my hand. $80 million. I sat back down before the shock sent me to the floor. My heart pounded like a drum inside my ribs. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run outside and spin under the porch light like a child. Instead, I placed the ticket flat on the coffee table and smoothed the edges with my fingertips. I did what I always did in moments of chaos. I reached for a notebook and a pen. I wrote a checklist. Do not quit job immediately. Do not tell Lucas yet. Do not spend on anything unnecessary. Meet with a financial advisor discreetly. Stay the same person. Caleb walked in halfway through the list. He leaned in the doorway, smiling like he already knew something was different. "You look like you have a secret," he said. I swallowed, considering whether to hide it even from him. But some secrets are too heavy for one person alone. "I think we're going to need that cabinet we always talked about," I said carefully. His eyes widened a little. "Which one?" "The one with the lock." He came closer, glancing at the ticket. He didn't gasp. He didn't rush to grab it. He just placed a hand over mine. "How much?" he asked quietly. 80 million. His thumb brushed the edge of the ticket. "Breathe," he whispered, reminding me not to forget the air in excitement. We sat together on the couch. The tea had gone cold. I leaned against him, letting the weight of the moment settle around us. He kissed my temple and spoke gently. "You always said money should behave," he murmured. "Make it listen to you." "I plan to," I said. He smiled, proud. I tucked the ticket inside a hardcover novel on the shelf, sliding it between pages 172 and 173. A page break where chapters shifted, a new beginning hiding in plain sight. Only Caleb knew the hiding place. Over the next days, I went to work. As usual, I corrected essays, handed out encouragement, and stern warnings in equal measure. My students never guessed a thing. At night, Caleb and I reviewed documents by the fire. We chose an advisor who didn't own a yacht. We drafted rules for ourselves, small steps only, never by attention, no public bragging. Money must serve good, not ego. We let time pass. We let the shock turn into strategy. One evening, Caleb asked, "Do you think this will change Lucas?" I hesitated. "I hope it changes his opportunities," I said, "not his values." Caleb's eyes softened. "You raised him well. He knows what matters." I wanted to believe that. I believed it then. I still do in moments. We created a plan to use the money when it meant something, a purpose greater than comfort, a gift for our son when he took a step that promised commitment and responsibility. Marriage felt right, the start of a family, a new legacy. We imagined the moment, handing him the envelope after the vows, watching relief and joy blend into gratitude. "We won't spoil him," I assured myself. "We'll empower him." Caleb nodded. "Love isn't about giving things. It's about giving meaning." That line became our mantra. We said it quietly whenever greed or excitement crept in. We repeated it often enough that the truth rooted deep. A week before our 35th anniversary, Caleb fell ill. A sudden tightening in his chest. The smell of the hospital still haunts me. Machines, cold blankets, murmured prayers. He squeezed my hand and whispered, "If pride ever gets loud, slow the money down." Then he told me he loved me, and the world changed shape again. I found the letter later among his receipts, written in his careful handwriting. He knew he might leave before me. He knew I would need guidance when loneliness tried to fill the silence with unwise comfort. After his funeral, I kept paying the mortgage instead of paying it off outright. I fixed things one at a time. I continued to live quietly. And I held on to the plan. The wedding gift that would honor Caleb's belief that love and responsibility belonged together. I thought Lucas would understand. I thought Bryn would welcome the blessing. I thought family would always be stronger than appearances. I was wrong. But back then, I still believed. The ticket remained hidden in that book for months before I moved the funds. Every choice made carefully. Every detail aligned with the rules Caleb and I promised each other. Money is a loud thing. We chose quiet stewardship. I never imagined a day would come when that gift would become a test. When $80 million would feel less like a blessing and more like a measure of who remembered my worth. The invitation came casually. A text from Lucas. "Dinner with Bryn's family. They want to meet you before the big day." His words looked warm, but the punctuation felt like business. Still, I prepared carefully. Caleb always said, "First impressions are a form of hospitality." River Street glowed with string lights above the water, restaurants polished to perfection. I wore a navy dress, The one Lucas once said made me look like a professor who solved mysteries. I straightened my shoulders and walked inside. A host guided me to a long table near the windows. Victor Hawthorne stood first, palms out in a practiced greeting. "Mrs. Whitaker, such a pleasure," he said, his smile shaped more by habit than joy. Lila rose beside him, elegant and crisp. Bryn squeezed my hand lightly, though her eyes flicked to her mother for approval. Lucas kissed my cheek quickly, already looking elsewhere. We ordered sparkling water. Waiters glided like they were on invisible tracks. Tessa, the wedding coordinator, arrived moments later, juggling a sleek tablet and a pen poised for efficiency. She wore beige, colorless, and expensive, like she preferred to fade behind the perfect scene she was constructing. Victor spoke as though the air was his stage. "We're thrilled about the ceremony. It's important that everything reflects well on our families. Optics matter." "Optics," I repeated, raising a brow. He nodded. "Perception shapes reality. The hospital board will be watching. We've secured significant donors to attend." Hospital board. Donors. It was a wedding, but they were building a campaign rally. Bryn brushed her hair behind her ear nervously. "Mom and Dad just want it to be polished," she said, giving me a soft smile, as if hoping I'd understand the pressure she lived in. "I believe love should be the polished part," I replied gently. Lucas laughed lightly, a sound more defensive than amused. "Mom, you know how event planning is. Everything is about presentation." Tessa nodded quickly. "The ceremony is a brand touch point." I stared at her. "A what?" "A moment that strengthens the couple's public image," she clarified, tapping her screen. I sat back, folding my hands. I taught teenagers to analyze symbolism. I knew when language was distracting from truth. "So," Victor said, clearing his throat, "on the matter of the gift, Bryn mentioned you wanted the transfer handled properly. We've prepared a letter for your signature, a blessing in writing." Tessa slid a crisp document toward me like a menu. Lucas didn't look me in the eye. I didn't reach for the paper. "A blessing," I repeated quietly. "Is that what it says?" Bryn nodded. "It outlines support for us as we start our life. Just something small." I finally looked at the page. It was not small. It was a declaration that any large gift would be structured as part of their assets, under the Hawthorne legacy. A ribbon-wrapped claim. Money must behave. Money must not buy approval. Caleb's voice echoed in my mind. "Make it listen to you." I held the pen, then set it down. "I will give my blessing," I said calmly, "but I won't sign away." Meaning, gifts should honor love, not appearances. Lucas blinked. "Mom, I am not refusing," I said, still steady. "But I won't let my support be used as a marketing tool. Love comes first." Victor's smile tightened. Lila's wine glass froze midair. Tessa stared into her tablet, perhaps reworking a schedule in her mind. After a strained pause, a server arrived with tea. He placed a warm cup before me, his hands steady. The warmth grounded me. Then I noticed it was Tessa who had directed him to bring it. A small kindness tucked inside a system obsessed with optics. Bryn finally spoke, voice soft. "We just want everything to go smoothly." "So do I answered. "Which is why I am careful." Victor leaned forward. "We all want what's best for Lucas." I looked to my son. "Do we?" Lucas stared at the silverware, trapped between two expectations. The conversation shifted to floral arrangements and seating charts. They spoke of lighting angles and photo opportunities. Never once did they discuss vows or memories or the life they hoped to build. I smiled politely, but a chill threaded through me. I saw the structure forming, one that valued image over intimacy. A wedding where love was a minor character. As dessert arrived, the lights dimmed slightly, catching Bryn's face in a gentler glow. For the first time that evening, I saw fear in her eyes. Not arrogance, fear of failing an impossible standard. She wasn't the enemy. She was a participant in a machine too loud to question. Lucas glanced at me across the candlelight. For a split second, he seemed like the boy who once danced with me on kitchen tiles. Then Victor mentioned donors again, and Lucas's gaze shifted away, like it always did when pressure called his name. I signed a simple card, nothing more. With my blessing, may love lead your steps. I handed it to Bryn and smiled. A real smile. She looked relieved, even grateful. Outside, the river flowed under the lights. I walked slowly to my car, letting the night air cool the frustration brewing inside me. The envelope with the real gift remained locked at home. Money waited, meaning waited longer. I looked up at the sky and whispered to Caleb, I hope he looks for me, not just what I can provide. I still believed there was time. A week after the dinner, I checked the mailbox with a strange flutter in my chest. The invitation should have been there by then, wrapped in thick paper, edged in gold, with my name spelled the way I taught Lucas to write it. I pictured sliding my fingers under the flap, smiling as I pinned it to the fridge. The mailbox was empty. Just a flyer about lawn care and a bill I already paid online. At first, I convinced myself it was delayed. Mail gets lost. Systems glitch. People make mistakes. But hope shrinks with repetition, and each time I opened an empty box, doubt crept closer. On the 5th day, an email arrived. It wasn't the invitation. It was a message from a generic account. Dear guests, due to limited seating, we will provide a private link for those unable to attend in person. We appreciate your understanding. Guests. Not family. Not mother of the groom. Just a catch-all category for people who don't matter in the photograph. I sat there staring at the screen, my finger hovering over the mouse. The link glowed like an apology wrapped in a digital shrug. I forwarded the message to Lucas, adding only 3 words. Is this correct? No reply. Hours later, he finally sent back. We are trying to keep the ceremony intimate. It's complicated with Bryn's family's expectations. You understand, right? He ended with a period, not a question mark. He wasn't asking. My throat tightened. I typed a response, deleted it, typed something gentler, deleted that too. Silence is sometimes the strongest punctuation. I went outside to breathe. Hydrangeas lined my porch in soft blues. I touched a wilted leaf and wondered when I became someone hidden behind convenience. Opal, my neighbor, noticed me sitting alone and walked over with her usual grace. She handed me a cup of peppermint tea before asking anything. You look like you've swallowed something sharp, she said. They didn't send me the invitation, I whispered. Maybe it's just a mailing error. It feels intentional, I admitted. Opal sat beside me. You once told your students that love isn't loud. It's patient. But remember this too. Boundaries are also love, the kind that protects dignity. I stared into the cup, watching steam spiral upward. I remembered lecturing about how words reveal values. Now I faced values without the words. I thought the wedding would be a moment of connection, I said. Sometimes, Opal replied, we are asked to love someone from a distance until they remember the way home. Her kindness unraveled a tear I had been holding in place. Later that evening, I found a blank note card. I wrote slowly, choosing every word the way I used to grade essays. I placed the card into an envelope addressed to Lucas and Bryn. It read, If you look for me before the vows, the gift awaiting you is yours. Love, Mom. No numbers, no promises, just a condition that required heart over optics. I walked the envelope to the post office myself, watching the clerk slide it into the outgoing bin. That small action felt like planting a seed in uncertain soil. Would they come looking, or would they let the moment slip by, just like the invitation? I returned home and checked the email again. Still no official invite, no address, no schedule, just a live stream link to make me invisible with convenience. My phone buzzed. A message from Tessa appeared. "Hi, Mrs. Whitaker. I just wanted to confirm you got the streaming information. Lighting might be tricky on the day, but we'll make sure everyone watching online feels included." I brushed a tear away before it fell. Included. That word tasted hollow. I typed, "Thank you, Tessa," because the planner wasn't the one shrinking my place in the story. Night settled around the house like a heavy blanket. I looked at the bookshelf, at the worn spine of the novel where the ticket once hid. Caleb's rules echoed again. Make money behave. Do not let pride guide your decision. I opened the drawer where the sealed envelope waited. The weight of $80 million pressed into that small rectangle. I imagined slipping it into Lucas's hand after he said, "I do." I imagined his eyes softening with recognition that I was there, witnessing the beginning of his new life. Now I wondered if he would even notice I was gone. The next morning, my mailbox held a small postcard, elegant calligraphy, the wedding date in gold. No location, no directions, no mention of seating, just a QR code linking back to the same live stream site. A digital seat in the shadows. That was their invitation. I stood there in the sunlight, holding a card that felt like a boundary drawn around me. A line that separated family from for display only. I tore the postcard in half, then took a deep breath and taped it back together. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because broken things deserve care too. Back inside, I placed the taped card next to the sealed envelope. Two symbols side by side, the hope of a mother and the reality she could no longer ignore. If my son wanted a wedding without his mother, then his mother would give him exactly what he asked for. The day of the wedding arrived with a sky that looked too perfect for the occasion. I brewed coffee slowly, letting the smell settle into the quiet house. My dress hung untouched in the closet, the navy one I wore to River Street. There was no reason to put it on. The screen would never notice. I placed my laptop on the dining table again, the same place where years of homework once piled up. A vase of hydrangeas stood at the center. I arranged them gently, as if the flowers could anchor me to the moment. The live stream link opened to a countdown clock. 10 minutes. A camera panned across a space I had never stepped foot in. Rows of white chairs, perfectly aligned. A raised platform wrapped in white linen. The river behind it, shimmering like a stage light. Music floated faintly through the speakers. People arrived smiling, chatting, hugging. Faces I had never met but who somehow earned a seat I didn't. I scanned for Lucas. When I finally saw him, my heart pulled tight. He looked handsome, nervous, adjusting his cufflink the way he always did when unsure. He didn't look toward the camera. He didn't look for me. Bryn entered next. Radiant, hair pinned with pearls. She carried herself like she'd practiced once a week for months. Victor and Lila followed behind proudly, taking their seats in the very front row. They reserved those chairs for people who mattered. The officiant welcomed everyone. Thank you to the families gathered here and to those watching from afar. His voice was polished and warm. He listed Bryn's parents by name. He did not say mine. My fingers curled against the table. The sound of applause filled the room, too loud for a ceremony I wasn't invited to. I turned the volume down, then off completely. The silence felt cleaner than the noise. A photographer snapped photos of Bryn and Lucas laughing together, leaning into each other. Love looked effortless in pictures. I wanted to be happy for them. I tried. But happiness requires invitation. Gratitude requires acknowledgement. Love requires presence. The officiant began speaking about unity. The camera panned the guests, lingering on elegant outfits and polished smiles. It was a show, and they played their roles perfectly. A close-up framed Lucas's face. My heart moved on instinct, reaching through years of memories. His first bike ride, his scraped knee, the night he cried into my shoulder after his first heartbreak, the way he once said, "Mom, you're my favorite person." Children believe that love is permanent. Adults forget. Then the vows began. Lucas spoke first. He promised to stand by Bryn, to choose her every day. He said, "You are the person who believes in me most." The sentence hit like a fist. I had believed in him long before she spoke his name. But no camera turned to catch that truth. Bryn read her vows next. She thanked her parents for shaping her life. She said nothing of me. She didn't have to, I reminded myself. This wasn't about me. Yet somehow, everything about it reminded me of my absence. When they said, "I do," cheers erupted. The camera shook slightly from applause. Hydrangeas swayed in the wind as if celebrating. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. They kissed. A perfect camera cue. I closed the laptop halfway. I couldn't watch the celebration that followed. There are moments when the heart refuses to perform politeness any longer. My phone buzzed. A message from Tessa. "Hi, Mrs. Whitaker. Hope the stream is working well. Lighting was tricky, but we tried our best to make everything visually inclusive." Visually inclusive. There it was again. The belief that appearance is enough in place of presence. I typed and erased several responses. Then I placed the phone face down. I looked at the hydrangeas in the vase. Their blue petals glowed softly in the afternoon light. In a different world, I would have pinned one to Lucas's suit before the ceremony, a quiet symbol that his mother was near. Instead, I sat alone, an audience member to a life I helped build. The reception began shortly after, the screen showing champagne toasts and laughter. People toasted to love, to future children, to the beautiful families united. Families. Plural. Mine not included. A microphone was handed around for speeches. Victor stood first, describing Lucas as the son we've welcomed into our legacy. Lila added that Bryn had found her perfect companion. Cameras flashed, cameras captured, cameras validated. I waited for someone to mention me, the one who raised him, the one who saved every spare dollar for his future before a ticket changed everything, the one who stayed up nights to help him memorize vocabulary lists because he dreamed of speaking with confidence. No one said a word. My hand reached for the laptop lid. I pressed it down gently until the screen went dark. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything that should have been said, felt, noticed. Full of recognition arriving late but unmistakable. It wasn't the forgetting that hurt most. It was the ease of it. I sat still for a long time, breathing evenly. Grief settled into clarity. Love doesn't vanish when unrecognized. It becomes its own witness. The phone rang. I let it ring twice before answering. "Miriam," I said quietly, steadying myself. "Yes, Irene," she replied. Her voice was calm, grounding. "It's time," I whispered. A pause, respectful. "We will handle everything carefully," she said. I looked once more at the closed laptop, at the hydrangeas, at the empty chair across from me where Caleb would have sat. "I won't let them forget who I am," I said. I ended the call and placed the phone down with intention. Today, they celebrated without me. Tomorrow, they would finally see me. The next morning, Sunlight cut clean lines across my living room floor. I sat there for a moment, steadying my breath, before picking up the sealed envelope one more time. It felt heavier now, not because of its contents, but because of the shift inside me. Love was still there, but so was the boundary. When I arrived at Miriam's office, she was already waiting with a folder angled toward me, as if she anticipated every question. A pot of coffee steamed between us. She poured me a cup before I even asked. "You're certain about this?" she asked, her tone firm but kind. "I'm certain that money must do good," I said, "not feed a machine that treats people like props." Miriam nodded once. "Then we structure it with rules to protect the purpose." She opened the folder. Inside were charts, legal terms, and a blueprint for what my gift could become. "A private foundation," she explained, "not a donor-advised fund. Your voice won't be diluted. You will choose the mission, the governance, and the values." "Values," I repeated softly. The word mattered more than the number on any check. She continued, "Spending will be steady and responsible, 4% annually. Focus on workforce empowerment, education, job training, dignity through skill." Dignity through skill. Caleb would have approved. "No grants to family members," she added. "Not now, not later." My heart tightened, but not painfully, firmly. "Family should earn what they receive," I said. Miriam made a note. Then she slid over a draft of the rules. "Media restrictions," she pointed to a clause. "No public parading of donations or beneficiaries. No branding your love. The people you help will not be turned into marketing material." I traced the lines with my finger. "This isn't a show," I said. "It's a promise." She smiled. "Exactly." On the table lay a sheet displaying a design for the foundation's logo, a quilt pattern. Caleb's idea. Each square representing a story woven into community. But one square was missing, left intentionally blank. "The unfinished corner," Miriam explained. "It symbolizes humility. The work is never done, and it reminds the giver not to seek perfection or praise." I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing in the quiet symbolism. Money can build walls or bridges. I chose bridges. "What about the 80 million?" I asked softly. Miriam slid over the next document. "We'll transfer it gradually from your current holdings. We keep everything quiet. Cooling period of 5 years before any mention of your name publicly. Your privacy preserved." "No one needs to know where it came from," I agreed. "The point is where it goes." She pointed to the last page. "Foundation board members. People you trust, guided by integrity." I thought of Opal, of Dr. Omar, who saw humanity in his patients every day, of the school where I taught, where resilience bloomed despite struggle. The board would not be built of donors. It would be built of doers. "Fill the board with people who understand effort," I said. Miriam nodded. "Done." I leaned back in the chair, letting the plan imprint itself into the future. Lucas would inherit lessons, not laziness. Bryn would learn that love is not a performance. Victor would understand that power meets its match in principle. And I would reclaim my name, quietly. Miriam slid a pen to me. "Sign when you're ready." I stared at the blank line where my name belonged. I remembered the silence during the wedding remarks, the missing acknowledgement, the erased presence. My name deserved a place. I signed. The letters were slow, deliberate, full of the years I spent proving that words matter. When I finished, the room felt lighter, as if disappointment had been converted into a new architecture of hope. Miriam pressed the folder closed. "You've taken back control." Her voice held admiration, not flattery. "This is not spite. This is wisdom." I exhaled, my shoulders dropping as if I'd been holding up the world alone. If Lucas had looked for me, I whispered, just once, this might have been different. Maybe he still will, she offered gently. We will give him the chance. I stood, but not through unchecked gifts. When I reached the door, I paused. One more thing, I said. I want the first project to be local, workforce training, people overlooked, underestimated. People like teachers? Miriam asked with a soft grin. People like anyone who works hard and is ignored anyway. She extended her hand. I shook it, feeling the strength in her grip. Outside, the air tasted cleaner. A breeze carried the scent of coffee from a nearby cart, blending with the faint perfume of spring blossoms. I walked slowly, noting each step. Foundations shouldn't rush. They should root. I passed the courthouse on my way back to the car. On its steps, newlyweds kissed while someone took pictures. Their laughter echoed. I didn't envy them. I only hoped they remembered the hands that would support them beyond the frame. As I unlocked my door, my phone buzzed. Lucas's name on the screen. For a brief second, hope flared. Then I saw the message. Can we talk? Just not about money. I don't want drama. I looked at the text for a long moment. He still didn't see what was at stake. Yes, I replied. Come by tomorrow. I put the phone down, letting the quiet settle around me again. Decisions made in silence are often the most powerful. Tomorrow, my son would come to my porch, and I would ask him a question he couldn't answer with optics. Lucas arrived just after sunset, parking crooked in the driveway like he used to when he ran home from college on weekends. I watched through the front window as he sat in the car for a moment, rehearsing something. When he finally stepped out, he didn't bring flowers or a smile. He walked up the steps with both hands in his pockets, shoulders tight. I'm here, he said, as if this visit were an inconvenience he decided to endure. I opened the door fully and stepped aside. Come sit with me. We took our usual places on the porch, 2 rocking chairs facing the yard. When he was a boy, he would curl against my side, watching fireflies. Tonight, he angled his chair slightly away, as though proximity alone could accuse him of something. He cleared his throat. Mom, I don't want to fight. Neither do I. We just wanted an intimate ceremony, he said. Bryn's parents have commitments, and the board— I'm not asking about invitations, I interrupted calmly. I'm asking something simpler. I inhaled slowly. Why didn't you look for me? He glanced at his watch, then at the yard. His foot tapped the porch board, a nervous habit. You got the live stream. We figured that was inclusive. Lucas, I said softly, you didn't even check if I was there. He frowned like my words were too small to take seriously. It was a busy day. Everything happened so fast. It always does, I replied. But love looks up. It searches the room. It wonders where someone is if they aren't seen. He finally met my eyes. There was confusion there, but also guilt, floating like a shadow behind the iris. We were managing expectations, he said. There were a lot of optics. I raised a hand. I don't care about optics. I care about being your mother. He leaned back. We didn't want money to become the center of everything. Bryn's family is sensitive about power dynamics. You think I was waiting with my hand out? I asked, voice thin as a thread. No. His chair creaked as he shifted. We just didn't want anyone to think you were buying your way into the day. I stared at him. The irony punched the air from my lungs. Buying my way in? I repeated. Lucas, I gave you life. I gave you years of showing up, cheering, sacrificing. If I needed money to secure a seat, then something is very wrong. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm not good with pressure, Mom. Everything feels like someone is watching, judging. I didn't want to mess up. I softened, because fear had shaped that sentence. You didn't mess up by being imperfect, I said. You messed up by forgetting who sees you when the lights are off. He closed his eyes briefly. Moments of silence passed, broken only by the hum of streetlights. Finally, he whispered, I'm tired. I just wanted the day to look right. And instead, I said, you made it feel wrong. He stared at the dark yard. Bryn's parents think legacy matters. They want us to fit in. They have influence I have to respect. And what influence do I have? I asked. Or do mothers not rank on that chart? He looked ashamed. Good. Shame is often the doorway to understanding. Mom, I love you, he said. I just didn't think you'd care about all the ceremonial stuff. Caring about being present at your wedding isn't ceremonial, I said quietly. It's motherhood. He swallowed hard. His voice wavered. I didn't know how to balance everything. I thought if you weren't front and center, there wouldn't be any tension. Tension for who? I asked. Me or the people who barely know you? He didn't answer. So let's try again, I said. Why didn't you look for me? His eyes glistened. Maybe I was afraid that if I saw you alone, I'd remember what actually matters. And I didn't want to disappoint anyone. You ended up disappointing the one person who would have forgiven you before you even asked, I replied. We sat in silence. A car passed on the street, headlights sweeping across us like a brief interrogation. He wiped his palms on his pants. If you want to talk about financial support, I don't want to pressure you. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. I'm not interested in conversations about money until we fix conversations about love. He nodded, small and honest. For once, he wasn't performing. Just then, his phone rang. He looked at the screen and hesitated. It's Bryn, he said quietly. Take it, I told him. She's your wife now, he answered, stepping to the edge of the porch. The conversation was quick. She needed him at the hospital for something related to a fundraising presentation. Even after the wedding, the Hawthorne agenda didn't rest. He hung up and turned to me. They need me on a shift tonight, too. Short staff, palliative care side. Hospice? I asked. He nodded. Dr. Reyes asked. He said it might help me reset. Maybe it will, I whispered. Lucas shoved his hands back into his pockets, as if holding something fragile inside them. I'll come by later this week, okay? I'll be here, I said. He nodded once, then descended the stairs slowly. Halfway to the car, he paused and looked back up at me as if searching for something he had misplaced. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. Whatever apology or admission hovered there wasn't ready yet. When he drove away, the darkness swallowed the red taillights quickly. The porch light illuminated the empty chair beside me. I rocked gently, letting the motion steady the ache. This wasn't revenge. This was a lesson. Love needs to be seen to survive. He would remember that soon, not through grand speeches, through work that returned him to the human heart. Tomorrow, someone else would help me remember mine, too. After Lucas drove away, I stayed on the porch until the night wind chilled my arms. The empty chair beside me felt like an old bruise aching under new pressure. I went inside, turning on a single lamp in the living room. The house held its breath the way it always did when grief walked through the door. I found myself drawn to the drawer where Caleb kept the things he didn't want to misplace. Notes, receipts from our last road trip, a photograph of Lucas at his college graduation, with all three of us smiling like the world was safe and permanent. Beneath the stack, folded into a tight rectangle, was an envelope I had not opened since the week after Caleb's funeral. My hands trembled slightly as I slid my finger under the flap. His handwriting filled the page, tidy, deliberate, the signature of a man who believed clarity was a kindness. Irene, money is loud when pride is driving. Slow it down whenever you feel the engine revving. You will recognize the moment. Keep your footing. Give the world help, not spectacle. And when someone you love forgets your worth, remember this. You don't need wealth to define you. You just need meaning. With all my love, Caleb. A breath escaped me, shaky and full of weight. I pressed the paper to my chest. Meaning, the rule he left behind, a compass for days like this. There was a second sheet folded inside, a drawing, Caleb's quilt design, squares arranged in imperfect symmetry, like a mosaic of many lives stitched together. But one square in the corner was missing, intentionally blank. He once explained, "We leave room for grace, for what isn't finished yet." I stared at that blank square, feeling how much of my life had become unfinished the moment he exhaled for the last time. The silence in the house was no longer empty. It hummed with his voice, his encouragement, his belief that I would find my balance even when the world tipped. I set the letter down gently and walked into the kitchen. I filled a kettle and waited for it to boil, grounding myself in ordinary rituals. Steam curled upward. I could almost see Caleb's face in the swirling white shapes, laughing softly at how I always overfilled the mug. I carried the tea back to the sofa and wrapped the quilt he made over my lap. Every square told a story. A birthday, a camping trip, the first day we moved into this house, the night Lucas got into college. And now, here in my lap, the reminder that love survives even when context changes. My phone buzzed with a message from Opal. "Are you all right, dear?" I replied, learning the difference between being needed and being valued. She sent back a small heart. Sometimes that's all a person can say. As I sipped my tea, I thought of Lucas again, sitting at the hospice, holding a stranger's hand, trying to be enough in a place where performance means nothing. Maybe that was the beginning of change. I looked at the quilt and traced the line where the missing square would have been. My fingers paused, landing on the stitching beside it. Caleb's voice echoed again. "We leave room for grace. Grace for him. Grace for me. Grace for Lucas, even if he had yet to offer any back." I stood and walked to my bookshelf, pulling out the novel that once protected the winning ticket. I opened to the place where the pages separated. The impression of the ticket still marked the crease, a ghost pressed into paper, reminding me of promises. We saved that money not to fix problems, but to fuel potential, to celebrate responsibility, not entitlement. It was supposed to be a blessing, not a test. But here we were. I placed Caleb's letter inside the book, right into the space where the ticket once lived. One form of fortune replacing another. As I slid the novel back onto the shelf, I whispered into the quiet, "We are still following the rules, love." Re-entering the living room, I noticed the hydrangeas I had brought back from the porch. Their petals still reflected the faint blue of daylight long gone. They reminded me of our wedding day, Caleb and I stealing hydrangeas from his aunt's backyard for the reception because the florist canceled last minute. We laughed through the panic, trusting that love would improvise. Lucas came from that love. Somewhere inside him, the truth remained. It just lost its way among expectations and fear. I returned to the porch, clutching the quilt around me. Stars scattered above like new pages without writing. The porch light flickered once, catching my attention. An old nail in the floorboard sang softly under my rocking chair. The world felt smaller, but not empty. I held the letter one more time, reading the last line again. You just need meaning. I would honor that. The foundation would honor that. Lucas would learn that. Maybe soon he'd see what he had overlooked. Not the money, but the heart behind it. A car passed by slowly, headlights sweeping like a lighthouse beam. I watched as the light faded, leaving shadows soft and familiar. Tomorrow held consequences. But tonight, I allowed myself to remember the man who taught me how to wield love without noise. I pressed a kiss to the paper near Caleb's name. You're still here, I whispered, guiding. The rocking chair moved in a gentle rhythm, a mother's patience, a widow's promise, a quiet heart finding its direction again. Rumors have a way of traveling faster than truth. 2 days after Lucas's visit, my phone rang before sunrise. I answered with a whisper, afraid the morning would shatter if I spoke too loudly. Irene, don't panic, Miriam said. When lawyers start that way, panic is exactly what follows. What happened? There's chatter going around the hospital network, she explained carefully. People are saying you planned a $10 million transfer to Lucas and Bryn as part of the wedding. Victor has been hinting at it to the wrong ears. My breath caught like a stitch under the rib. I never promised anything to his parents. They never even saw the numbers. I know, she said, but someone leaked the amount. I clenched the phone. Who? That's what we're finding out. I walked to the porch and stared at the street as the sun crept up, painting soft stripes along the pavement. The world looked ordinary, but everything felt altered. There's a specific kind of betrayal that comes when someone takes what you kept sacred and turns it into gossip. Later that morning, Miriam arrived at my house with a stack of documents. We spread them across the dining table where I once corrected essays and paid bills. Seeing blueprints of deception laid out on that wood felt like a violation of something pure. She slid a printed page toward me. A letter of intent. My name typed neatly at the top. A signature beneath it. My signature. Except I had never signed it. Someone forged your approval, Miriam said quietly. They're preparing to approach donors with the assumption that the funds are guaranteed. Victor is counting on optics again. If the world believes the gift is real, he thinks you'll have no choice but to make it real. Anger rose inside me, hot and sudden, but I kept my voice level. They think pressure makes me weak. They're about to find out otherwise. Miriam tapped her pen against the document. We'll send a cease and desist immediately. Then we follow the trail. We traced the digital fingerprints, access logs, metadata, email chains. Technology remembers even when people hope it forgets. A name surfaced among the permissions. Shay. My stomach sank. Shay Mercer, my former assistant, the woman who once organized Caleb's medical files and cried beside me after the funeral. I trusted her like family. She had left last year because she said she needed a fresh start. Why would she do this? I whispered. She's drowning in debt, Miriam said. She applied for a loan recently, denied twice. Victor's company stepped in with an offer to help, if she helped them. It was a hard truth to swallow. Betrayal is painful, but understanding its roots makes the wound feel different. I could picture Shay, desperate fingers reaching for any lifeline, even a poisoned one. What now? I asked. Miriam met my eyes. You decide. We can pursue charges, or you can give her a path to repair the damage she caused. I thought of Caleb's letter. Give the world help, not spectacle. We aren't done yet, Miriam continued. There's one more thread. She pulled out another page from the file, an internal email. Victor had written, "We keep the machine fed. This is about legacy, not approval. Legacy over love." Again and again. I pressed my palms flat against the table. He doesn't get to rewrite my intentions. Miriam nodded. Then we make sure he learns the difference between leverage and hope. Around noon, I received a message from Tessa. A short apology about the reception program. Something about lighting not flattering certain album shots. Small words that revealed how deeply she lived in the world of appearances. She meant well, but she was blind. Blindness can be corrected, I reminded myself, but only with the right light. I answered politely, then set the phone aside. There were bigger wounds to mend. When evening came, I walked outside to clear my thoughts. The sky glowed soft pink. Children on bicycles raced past, laughing without any idea of how cruel fairness can be for adults. I envied their simplicity. Across the street, Opal watered her garden. She looked up and gave me a small nod, sensing something had shifted. I walked over. "You look like you're holding something heavy again," she said. "I found out who opened the door for the wrong people," I replied. "Someone I trusted." Opal leaned on her hose. "It hurts most when the hand that lets go was the one you were holding." I blinked against the sudden sting in my eyes. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "Part of me wants justice. Part of me wants redemption." She tilted her head. "Maybe you can choose both." We stood in silence a moment longer. Hydrangeas swayed in the breeze on her porch, reminding me again that beauty doesn't need recognition to bloom. Later that night, I received another message, this time from Lucas. A simple text. "I heard something about a donation. Can we talk?" Even now, he thought the conversation revolved around money, not family, not acknowledgement, not love. I stared at his name glowing on the screen. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Instead of answering the question he asked, I typed the one I needed. "Did you look for me that day?" He didn't reply. Minutes passed. Then the typing dots appeared, then vanished. Then nothing. I set the phone down gently and breathed. Some lessons require darkness before light. I returned to the dining table and looked at the foundation papers, crisp and full of promise. The forged letter lay beside them, the past trying to steal the future. The difference between them wasn't money, it was intention. I folded Caleb's quilt over the back of a chair, smoothing the corners. One patch missing, one reminder that there is always room left for grace. Tomorrow, I would confront Shay, not to punish her, to invite her to choose better. We all lose our way sometimes, but the road back is only possible if someone leaves a lamp lit. I switched off the lights and let the house wrap around me like a promise kept. Love may be quiet, but quiet does not mean weak. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Lila Hawthorne stood there, polished as ever, posture perfect, eyes uncertain. She held a slim envelope, but clutched it tight like it was a shield. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said, voice soft with a tremor she tried to hide. "You are not," I replied. "Come in." She stepped inside with careful grace, glancing at the photos on the wall, pictures of Lucas growing up, Caleb's arm around my shoulders, our home alive with memories she had never seen and likely never asked about. "Would you like some tea?" I offered. "No," she said quickly, then folded her hands. "Yes, actually, if it's not trouble." I brewed chamomile and set the cup before her. She stared into the steam as though it might give her courage. "We both know what Victor is doing," she said finally. I took the seat opposite her, waiting. "He is obsessed with how things look," she continued, "with maintaining status, influence, legacy. He thinks the world will collapse if anyone sees a crack." Her gaze lifted to meet mine. "But we all crack eventually," I nodded gently. Some cracks let the truth in. She swallowed hard. I want to apologize. For the invitation. For everything. Her voice trembled again. Bryn begged Victor to include you, but he insisted appearances had to be managed. He said a live stream was acceptable for someone who isn't used to the public eye. Someone who isn't used to being seen, I murmured. Pain flickered across her features. Bryn loves Lucas, truly, but she has lived her whole life under a spotlight she never asked for. Her father decides what exists and what doesn't. She exhaled shakily. And I let him. The honesty in her voice softened something inside me. She wasn't the villain. She was collateral damage in a world ruled by perfectionism. Lila reached into her purse and placed the envelope on the table. This is a log of communications that might help you. Emails, schedules, notes Victor shouldn't have written. She looked ashamed. It proves he planned to use your money as a bargaining chip with the hospital's board. I stared at the envelope, its weight heavier than the thin paper suggested. Why are you giving me this? Because Bryn is terrified, she whispered. Terrified she has lost her husband's mother. Terrified she contributed to it. Tears welled in her eyes but didn't fall. We were so busy performing respectability that we forgot how to be decent. Her voice quieted further. Please don't destroy her. She is not her father. She wants to do right. She just doesn't know how yet. I reached out, placing my hand over hers. I don't want to destroy anyone, I said. I only want my son to remember who loves him without conditions. She let out a long breath, relief unwinding from her shoulders. Thank you. Footsteps approached from the hallway. Tessa stood there, a hesitant silhouette holding her tablet like a lifeline. I'm sorry, she blurted, for everything. I was so focused on making the event perfect, I didn't notice the people I was blinding. She glanced down at her shoes. I should have asked more questions. I should have made room. Her remorse wasn't dramatic or rehearsed. It was plain and therefore more powerful. You saw me, I said. Not well, but you saw me. That matters. She blinked, surprised by forgiveness. If there's anything I can do, there is, I answered. Help me return dignity where it was misplaced. She nodded vigorously, determination overtaking shame. Lila stood, smoothing her skirt. I need to go before Victor notices I'm missing. He schedules every minute. Her attempt at humor failed to mask the fear. I walked her to the door. Just as she stepped outside, she turned back. He will push, she warned softly. He will use every tool he has. But even he gets tired, and he underestimates those who stand quietly. I don't stand alone, I assured her. Her eyes flicked to the quilt draped on a chair. I can see that. She left quickly, heels clicking down the walkway like a ticking clock. I returned to the dining table. The envelope from Lila waited patiently. I opened it and scanned the pages. Emails from Victor instructing his team to move forward, regardless of maternal hesitations. A note to Tessa reminding her that the mother's image should not overshadow the donor's. And the worst, a document drafted to link my supposed $10 million contribution to a naming opportunity at the hospital. He wanted to put my money into lights and plaques, but keep my name out of the room. I set the papers down and breathed, slowly through the flash of anger. Caleb once told me, when the world tries to turn you into a weapon, choose to be a tool that repairs. Repairing sometimes means confronting, but never with cruelty. I looked out the window, watching leaves flutter in the breeze. Cracks did let the truth in, even in enemy walls. And sometimes, the crack was the heart learning how to open again. I asked Shay to meet me at the small cafe on Broughton Street, the one where we used to sit after Caleb's appointments. She arrived early, standing outside with her arms wrapped tightly around herself, shoulders tense like she was bracing for impact. The moment she saw me, she tried to smile, but guilt dragged the corners down. "Irene," she said, voice thin and frayed. "Let's sit," I replied, keeping my tone calm. The goal wasn't punishment, it was truth. We chose a table near the window. The morning sun warmed the wood surface between us. Shay stared at her hands, nails chipped, skin dry. Life hadn't been kind to her recently. "I never meant to hurt you," she began quickly. "Or Lucas. Or anyone." "You did," I said, not to wound her but to anchor the conversation in honesty. "But wanting to do right now counts. Tell me what happened." Tears welled in her eyes. She looked down, a tear slipping onto the table. "I was drowning, Irene," she whispered. "Bills stacked up. I tried everything. And then Victor offered help if I just confirmed something he already believed." She swallowed hard. "He said you wanted to give 10 million. He made it sound harmless." "So you fed the rumor," I said softly. She nodded, shoulders shaking. "I convinced myself it wasn't a lie if you eventually gave it." I exhaled slowly. It was astonishing how easily desperation can twist principles. "You were there for me when Caleb died," I said. "You organized meals. You drove me to appointments. You cried with me. Why didn't you come to me when you were the one in need?" She covered her mouth, the answer too heavy to release right away. "I was ashamed," she finally managed. "You've always been strong. I didn't want you to see me weak." "We all break," I said gently. "The strength is in how we rebuild." She nodded, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand. "I understand why you did it," I continued. "But understanding doesn't erase the consequence. Victor used your actions to manipulate my son's life. He tried to turn my love into leverage." "I know," she whispered. "I'll do anything to fix it." I studied her face. Ashamed, scared, but willing. That part mattered. "There is a way," I said. She looked up, desperate for direction. "You will work for the foundation." Her eyebrows lifted in surprise. "Work for you?" "For the people the foundation will help," I clarified. "You'll review applications, check references, verify need. You will guard the doors you once left unlatched. Every hour you work, every file you vet, will be repayment. Not to me, to the truth." A tremor passed through her. "You'd trust me again?" "I will supervise at first," I said. "Miriam will monitor everything. Accountability will be your companion." Shay nodded rapidly. Hope cracked through her fear. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this means." "I do," I answered quietly. "Because I have been forgiven before, too." She reached into her bag with shaking hands and pulled out a thumb drive. "There's more," she said. "Emails. Calls Victor made. Plans he set in motion, assuming he'd get your money. Everything." I took it gently. Another thread in the tapestry of deceit unraveling in our favor. "You did the wrong thing," I said. "But now you can help make things right." Shay's tears fell freely, releasing the weight she had carried alone. She stood suddenly, stepping around the table to hug me. Her grip was tight, desperate, grateful. I let her hold on a moment longer than usual. When she pulled away, her face was wet but hopeful. "I won't waste this chance," she promised. "I'll prove you weren't wrong to believe in me." "I never stopped believing," I said. "I was just waiting for you to believe again, too." She left the cafe with her head higher than when she arrived. I sat alone for a moment, watching the steam rise from the untouched mug of herbal tea on the table. The reflection of the street flickered in the window. People walking, living, unaware of the quiet justice settling into place. Life rarely gives us clean redemption arcs, but every once in a while, someone chooses a turn that leads back to themselves. Shay had taken her first step. As I walked home, I passed the community bulletin board outside the library. Volunteer flyers lined the cork, tutors needed, meal deliveries for seniors, lines of everyday hope pinned up for anyone willing to notice. I paused, touching a flyer about job readiness workshops. Ordinary good, the kind that never makes headlines but changes lives. Back at home, I placed the thumb drive next to the papers from Lila. The evidence grew, but so did the resolve to handle it with grace. I looked at Caleb's quilt draped on the couch. The missing square seemed to smile at me, reminding me of space left intentionally unfilled, not for loss, but for healing. This was not revenge. This was accountability layered with mercy. Even those who hurt us can become part of the repair. I brushed my hand over the fabric and whispered, "We're fixing it, love. One stitch at a time." The next day, I returned to the same cafe out of habit. The corner seat near the window had become my refuge, a place where sunlight could sit with me while I sorted through shifting loyalties and new beginnings. I opened my notebook, intending to draft a list of potential board members for the foundation, but my pen hovered uselessly above the page. Then the cafe door chimed. A young woman stepped inside, clutching a worn canvas bag and a folder bursting with papers. She looked around nervously before approaching the counter, speaking to the barista with a voice too soft for the world she was competing in. When she turned to leave, her resume slipped free and scattered across the floor. She dropped to her knees quickly, trying to gather the pages before anyone noticed. Instinct guided me. I bent down to help. "Thank you," she said, breathless and flustered. Her hair was neatly braided, her blazer slightly frayed at the edges. Determination poured off her like quiet steam. "I'm Irene," I said. "Would you like to sit?" She hesitated just long enough to show she wasn't used to kindness without strings. Then she nodded. "I'm Nia," she said quietly. As she settled into the chair across from me, I caught a glimpse of the top sheet: volunteer experience, caregiver support, night classes in business administration. A handwritten note from someone named Mrs. Thompson praising her work ethic. "Looking for a job?" I asked gently. She exhaled a small laugh. "I've been looking for months. They tell me I need experience in order to get experience." Her attempt at humor couldn't hide the exhaustion beneath it. I glanced at the objective statement on her resume. To provide value through effort. No inflated adjectives, no buzzwords, just truth. "May I offer a suggestion?" I asked. When she nodded, I continued. "Your resume lists responsibilities. Try highlighting achievements too. What you've accomplished, not just what you were assigned." She took the page back, reading it with new eyes. "No one explained it like that before." "Also," I added, "verbs matter more than adjectives. Action tells the story." She whispered the words to herself, as if storing them for emergencies. When she smiled nervously, I saw something familiar: strength wrapped in humility. Caleb would have liked her. He always said the world was held together by people who didn't need applause. "Do you mind if I ask what draws you to workforce programs?" I asked. She stared at her hands before answering. "My mom worked 3 jobs to support us, but promotions went to louder people. She was reliable, invisible, and overlooked." Nia lifted her chin, determination steadying her voice. "I want to change that. I want to help people like her get what they deserve." I felt the warmth of Caleb's letter in my pocket, even though it wasn't there. This young woman embodied everything the foundation wanted to stand for before it even existed. "You carry a quiet excellence," I said. She looked caught between disbelief and gratitude. "I just work hard." "That alone is extraordinary," I replied. Her eyes glistened. When life pushes someone down long enough, a simple acknowledgement can feel like oxygen. "Would you allow me to make a call?" I asked. She blinked in surprise. "For what?" "To introduce you as a candidate for a program director assistant role," I said. "It's where effort is recognized before image." Naya covered her mouth with her hand as a tear slipped free. "Why would you help me?" she whispered. "Because someone once believed in me when I didn't believe in myself," I said. She nodded, trying to gather composure. "I won't waste it." "I'm not worried," I said sincerely. Movement caught my eye. Across the street, Lucas stood outside the hospice entrance, still in his scrubs. He had a cup of coffee in hand, head bowed as he listened to an older patient's family member. No cameras, no audience, just humanity. He looked up briefly, spotting me through the window. The shock in his expression softened into something else. Recognition, maybe. Understanding, hopefully. He didn't look away this time. For a moment, he simply watched. He saw Nia sitting across from me. He saw how I leaned forward, offering time and attention. A reminder of what love looks like when it's not being photographed. He smiled faintly, small, uncertain, but real, before returning inside. Nia turned back to me, unaware of the window tableau. "I'll make a list of achievements tonight," she said. "And verbs." I laughed softly. "Good. And if you need help, we can meet again." She stood, shoulders no longer bent. "Thank you, Irene. Truly." "Go show the world what it's been missing," I told her. She walked out with a new stride, each step a note of possibility. I watched her until she disappeared around the corner. When she was gone, I pressed my hand over my heart. It beat steady, each pulse saying, "This matters. This is meaning." I closed my notebook and wrote the first official line on a blank page. Candidate number 1, Nia Brooks, quiet excellence. The quilt of my life gained another square today, stitched from purpose rather than pain. And in the distance, my son began to notice the difference between optics and effort. Some lessons do not need to be spoken. They only need to be witnessed. The conference room wasn't glamorous. Fluorescent lights hummed. The chairs squeaked when anyone shifted. The carpet had a stubborn stain near the door no one had been able to fully remove. It was perfect. A room without spectacle. A room built for work, not applause. Miriam stood at the whiteboard, flipping through the agenda. She wore her calm confidence like a second skin. Opal sat beside me, adjusting her reading glasses as she studied the documents laid out in front of her. Dr. Omar Reyes joined us, taking careful notes already, as if every detail mattered. It did. "Thank you all for being here," I said, hands folded in my lap. "This foundation is beginning not because of money, but because of meaning. We are here to lift people who work hard and still get overlooked, people like teachers, caregivers, builders of quiet futures." Opal nodded, eyes shining with a private pride. Miriam cleared her throat. "First item, bylaws." She passed copies to each of us. Annual spending, conflict of interest rules, and protections to ensure that no board member personally benefits. Omar raised his hand slightly. "This clause about oversight. Who reviews applicants?" "Eventually, a full team," Miriam said. "But for now, supervised staff will handle the screening. Shay will be our first coordinator." Opal glanced my way. She didn't know the story yet, but she trusted my judgment. "We will move slowly," I said. "Every decision mindful, no shortcuts." We reviewed the policies line by line. It felt like stitching, each rule a thread reinforcing the integrity of the quilt Caleb designed. Miriam clicked the projector, revealing the foundation's logo, a quilt pattern with a single empty square in the corner. In the harsh, fluorescent glow, it looked almost like a missing piece of the world waiting to be filled. Omar smiled softly. That's a lovely reminder that there's always more work to do. And a reminder, I added, that humility belongs at the table too. We moved next to the rollout strategy, how to quietly launch without fanfare. No press releases, no speeches, just letters and outreach to workforce programs already doing good away from city headlines. We'll start local, I said. The city has plenty of people who deserve opportunities without having to pose for it. Miriam passed out a printed calendar. Call for applications begins next month. A small silent gathering in 6 weeks to finalize the board and operational structure. She tapped one name on the list of prospective beneficiaries. It was written in pencil at the bottom. Candidate number 1, Nia Brooks. My heart warmed at the sight. She'll be our first success story, I said. Omar leaned forward. She'll also be a reminder of why we work quietly. Opal dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. People like her make a community strong, not donors with their names on buildings. I smiled at her. Exactly. The meeting progressed through budget projections and early outreach plans. Each part of the plan built upon the last, forming a structure that would outlast ego. Halfway through, Miriam passed around a small envelope. This is the final account transfer, she said. The funds are secure. The foundation is now fully operational. The gravity of that moment washed over me. $80 million had found its purpose. It would no longer be a silent gift waiting for validation. It would move. It would help. It would heal. I thought of Caleb, the strength in his hands, the quiet conviction he carried everywhere he went. He would have been proud. After we wrapped the final agenda item, everyone stood, gathering coats and bags. The meeting wasn't glamorous, but it was sacred. We were not celebrating wealth. We were honoring work. As they left, one by one, I lingered behind. I walked to the projector screen and gently touched the logo. The empty square felt like an exhale. It represented what the world still needed: empathy, responsibility, courage. The door behind me opened. A soft voice spoke. I wanted to say thank you before I go. It was Omar. You've already given plenty just by being here, I said. I've spent years watching families say goodbye, he replied. It teaches you what's real. This, he gestured to the documents, is real. He placed a small card on the table. If Lucas ever needs a reminder of what matters, I'll be there to guide him back to it. I blinked away a sting of tears. Thank you, Omar. Everyone gets lost, he said. The lucky ones find someone lighting a path. After he left, silence returned, but it didn't feel lonely. It felt alive, like the room understood it had just witnessed a beginning. I gathered the papers and walked outside. The sky was a clear blue stretching endlessly. Across the street, the hospice entrance came into view. Volunteers greeted families. Nurses pushed wheelchairs with gentle focus. This was the world that needed the most attention, the world far from limelight. I saw Lucas emerge through the sliding doors at that exact moment. His face looked tired, but his shoulders were straighter than before. He held the door open for an elderly man, waiting patiently until he had cleared the threshold. He looked across the street and saw me standing with the foundation folder pressed to my chest. He didn't smile, he didn't wave, but he paused. He acknowledged me, not as a donor, not as a bystander, but as his mother. It was a flicker of recognition, a seed of change, a look that said he was beginning to understand the difference between surface and substance. I nodded once. He nodded back, the silent language we used to share. Then he turned to go back inside, purpose guiding his steps. He was learning where meaning lived, and I was learning that justice didn't need to raise its voice to be heard. The foundation had taken its first breath. The next breaths would be stronger. The fundraiser was held at a private club perched high above the city, where windows stretched from floor to ceiling, and the skyline itself felt like decor. I had been here once before, years ago, when Caleb and I attended a retirement dinner for a colleague. Back then, I felt shy, but welcomed. Tonight, I walked in like someone who was never meant to be visible. The event buzzed with self-importance. People clinked glasses not to celebrate, but to be photographed celebrating. Laughter echoed just a little too long, practiced and polished for the ears that mattered. Victor spotted me before I spotted him. He paced toward me with a confidence that assumed ownership of every room he entered. His suit was immaculate, dark charcoal, a subtle pattern that probably cost more than a month of teacher's salary. Under the chandeliers, he glowed with curated power. "Irene," he said, offering a hand. "You came." "I was invited," I replied, shaking his hand briefly. "And I like to make sure people look me in the eye when they talk about my name." His smile flickered before repairing itself. "You have wit. That's admirable." No, I thought. It was armor. He guided me toward the edge of the room, where a long table showcased pledge cards and glossy brochures about the hospital's expansion. A banner hung overhead celebrating new horizons in community health, though the room itself felt as far from the community as clouds are from soil. "We're finalizing donor tiers tonight," Victor said. "Your contribution would guarantee a naming opportunity, a wing, perhaps, or a major fellowship." He placed a brochure in my hand. I set it down without looking. "I'm not interested in purchasing a plaque," I said. "It wouldn't be purchasing," he corrected smoothly. "It would be recognizing your generosity." I studied him. Recognition isn't the point. He chuckled lightly, but irritation crackled beneath it. "Of course, but prestige draws attention. Attention draws more support, and support saves lives." "Support should begin with seeing the people right in front of you," I replied. "Not with inscription on a wall." He exhaled sharply through his nose, recalculating. "Let's speak plainly. You cared about how your son's wedding looked. I care how this hospital looks. We both want stability and respect." "I wanted to be present," I said. "You wanted me to be useful." He waved a hand dismissively. "You're being emotional." "Yes," I said, stepping closer. "I'm a mother. You should try it." Victor's jaw tightened. "Look," he said, lowering his voice to a confidential murmur. "The foundation idea is fine, very noble. But you have an opportunity to make a public impact now, at scale. Don't bury your name in obscurity." "My name isn't buried," I answered. "You just refuse to say it." His expression flickered again, guilt, then annoyance. Before he could recover, Lila approached us, her presence surprisingly grounded tonight. She rested a gentle hand on Victor's arm. "We should greet the chair of the board," she said. But her eyes were on me, saying something else entirely. "I see you." "I'll join shortly," Victor told her, brushing her hand away a little too firmly. She stepped back, but not in fear, in disappointment. Then Lucas appeared, still in work scrubs, the fabric wrinkled from long hours. His arrival stirred whispers through the room. He looked like a stray detail in a photo shoot. Victor's eyes widened slightly at the incongruity. "What are you wearing?" Victor hissed under his breath. Lucas looked down at himself, almost surprised to be reminded. I came straight from the hospice wing, he said simply. Didn't have time to change. That single sentence held more dignity than Victor's entire ensemble. Bryn arrived right after him, flush-cheeked and breathless. She slipped her hand into Lucas's, fingers lacing not with performance but with relief. Her eyes darted to me. There was apology in them this time, visible, unmasked. Victor forced a laugh. You two clean up well usually. Tonight, we improvise. He clapped Lucas on the shoulder, missing the moment entirely. Lucas turned to me. Mom, he said softly, just a single word, but it was said with intention. He was choosing to see me tonight. Before I could respond, Victor stepped between us. Lucas, we need to lock in your mother's commitment. Lucas's brow creased. Her commitment? Victor smirked. The $10 million she is pledging to the hospital. It's time to make it official. Silence sharpened. Bryn's fingers tightened around Lucas's. Her eyes went wide, fear replacing any remaining veneer of poise. Lucas turned to me slowly. Mom, I raised a hand gently. Lucas didn't promise you my money, I said. And neither did I. Victor scoffed. You're playing hard to get. Why make this difficult? Because I don't rent my dignity, I said. The words landed like a stone breaking glass. Conversations around us faltered. People glanced over, sensing a shift in gravity. Victor's voice dropped into warning territory. This project needs funding. Don't risk ruining a legacy over pride. The only legacy worth building is one rooted in what's real, I replied, not in fear of losing face. He opened his mouth again, but Lucas stepped forward, positioning himself between us. Mom's money is hers, he said, not a tool for anyone's image. Victor froze, his certainty fracturing. Bryn straightened her shoulders. We're done letting appearances dictate our lives, she said quietly, but with more conviction than I'd ever heard from her. We'll help the hospital honestly, without strings, without pressure. Lila returned then, pressing a handkerchief into my hand before meeting my eyes. Thank you, she whispered. She didn't mean for attending. She meant for standing firm. The room around us seemed to tilt, gravity shifting away from Victor's control. I need to check on something, Victor muttered, stepping backward as if the floor beneath him had lost its script. Lucas looked at me, really looked. I'm starting to understand, he said. What matters? Emotion built behind my ribs. Good, I murmured, meaning over money. He nodded, and for once he didn't rush to the next thing. He remained right there, present. Bryn leaned in closer. I'm sorry, she said, for everything I didn't see. I placed a hand gently over hers. It's not too late to learn. In that crowded room full of glittering falsehoods, 3 hearts realigned quietly, and the loudest man there was suddenly the smallest presence. Love regained a seat at the table, not because of wealth or optics, but because someone finally remembered to look for it. The small community hall held no chandeliers or velvet ropes, just folding chairs, a podium borrowed from the library, and a modest banner with the foundation's quilt logo hung slightly crooked on one side. It was imperfect and therefore honest. People gathered not because the room sparkled, but because they had heard whispers of a program that valued effort over show. Volunteers rolled in carts of pastries. A pot of coffee sat on a table draped with a plain navy cloth. The air buzzed not with spectacle, but with anticipation. When I arrived, Opal waved me over to the front. Everything is ready, she said. Her smile carried a quiet triumph. This is going to matter. Miriam arranged papers on a small table while Shay checked name tags with meticulous care. She glanced up at me with nervous hope. I gave her a nod. Accountability had turned into trust. Soon the room filled. Neighbors, teachers, nurses, people who worked night shifts and double shifts and shifts no one thanked them for. They took their seats without fuss, unaware they represented the true backbone of the community. Omar stepped onto the podium first. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "We are here because someone remembered what effort looks like." Then he looked toward me and smiled. "Please welcome Irene Whitaker." Applause rose, not loud, but warm. I walked to the podium, hands steady on the wooden edge. I looked out at the faces before me and saw a mosaic of strength and resilience. I created this foundation because too many people do essential work while feeling invisible, I said. The world needs to look beyond optics and begin honoring meaning, real meaning. Heads nodded. Some eyes glistened. "We will invest in job skills and training," I continued. "We will support those who show up every day and build something better, whether the world notices or not." I paused, just long enough for the heartbeat of the room to align. "This is not charity," I said. "This is recognition." Applause grew. Miriam signaled for the certificates to be handed out. The first name called was Nia Brooks. She froze for a moment, stunned, before standing. A few tears slid down her cheeks as she approached the front. She accepted the acknowledgement with a trembling smile, the room cheering for her without cameras demanding proof. When she returned to her seat, she hugged the paperwork to her chest. Effort finally had a home. After a few more introductions and quiet congratulations, Miriam stepped up again, holding a plain envelope. "We have one more announcement," she said, glancing at me, "for permission." I nodded. "This foundation was made possible through a transformative gift," she said, "a gift given anonymously for months, with humility and purpose." A ripple of curiosity moved through the room. It is time for the community to know who gave them this new beginning. In that moment, my heartbeat slowed, steady as truth. Miriam opened the envelope and said my name. Irene Whitaker. The applause rose again, but not in shock, in understanding, in gratitude. People didn't clap because of the number behind the gift. They clapped because the person behind it had stood among them all along. From the back of the room, I saw Lucas watching. He had slipped in quietly, wearing ordinary clothes, blending into the crowd by choice, not neglect. Bryn stood beside him, fingers loosely intertwined with his. Her expression, open, emotional, was a confession without words. Shay approached then, offering me a small box for the silent auction. A knitted navy sweater I recognized instantly. Caleb's. The one he wore the night we decided kindness would be our legacy. It sat at the center of the table, not as memorabilia, but as an invitation to contribute with heart, not ego. Tessa hurried toward me next. She looked different, lighter, sincere. "I'm sorry," she said, breathless from the rush. "I should have seen what mattered sooner." "You see it now," I replied. "That's what counts." A hush fell as Lila stepped forward too. She slipped a small envelope into my hand. "This is what you deserve," she whispered. Inside was a thin card with a single line written in neat script. "Thank you for bringing the story back to its rightful author." I looked toward Lucas. His chest rose and fell, full of something weightier than guilt and far more redemptive. He took Bryn's hand and walked toward me slowly, the room giving him space. He stopped at the podium and turned to face the crowd. For a moment, he struggled to find the strength in his voice. Then, "I want to thank the most important person in my life," he said. "My mother." Gasps and soft murmurs drifted through the room. Lucas continued. "She didn't demand attention. She didn't threaten or shame. She didn't run to cameras. She just kept helping people, even when I forgot to look for her. He turned to me. Mom, may I start again? The sincerity in his voice pierced deeper than any apology could. I nodded once. You may. He wrapped his arms around me, tight, present, real. The kind of embrace that says I remember. The kind that repairs something that once felt permanently cracked. As people applauded, I noticed Victor near the entrance. He had come too late to change the narrative. His arms were crossed, his expression unreadable. But even he could not disturb what had taken root here. Tonight, the world gave my name back. Not because I demanded it, but because I earned it. And even more, my son spoke it with pride. Bryn called the next afternoon. Her voice shook the way truth sometimes does before it finds courage. Would you come with us on a volunteer shift tonight? She asked. Lucas said the hospice needs extra hands. It wasn't a formal apology. It was better, a step toward repair. I agreed. Night settled early as autumn crept in. I arrived at the hospice in a soft sweater and comfortable shoes. Volunteers gathered in the hallway, some arranging care packages, others sorting blankets. The building carried a hush that felt respectful rather than sad. Lucas met me by the front desk. His scrubs were wrinkled again, hair slightly messy, exhaustion etched beneath his eyes. But there was warmth there, too. You came, he said, voice low. Always, I replied. He exhaled with relief, as though he had been holding his breath since the wedding. Bryn approached, shifting from foot to foot. I'd like to help you serve dinner, she said. If you don't mind working with me. I didn't mind. It meant she was trying. We pushed carts of trays down the hall. The air smelled faintly of broth and lavender disinfectant. Families sat with loved ones, holding hands, speaking softly, celebrating breaths rather than days. A nurse guided us into a room where an older woman sat propped by pillows, staring toward the window as if waiting for someone she used to know. Good evening, I said gently. May we bring you dinner? She turned her head with effort. You look like someone I once loved, she whispered. Her hand lifted weakly from the blanket. Instinct guided me. I reached out gently, my palm warm around hers. Her fingers curled like she'd found something familiar. In that moment, the noise of my own life, all the hurt, the forgetting, fell away. Hands remember what hearts sometimes refuse to. I saw Lucas watching from the doorway, frozen. His eyes traveled to my hand holding the woman's. Something in him cracked open, quietly and honestly. He approached slowly, kneeling on the opposite side of the bed. Is there anything you'd like? He asked the woman softly. She smiled, just barely. Someone staying a while, she murmured. Lucas nodded, placing his hand lightly on her blanket. He didn't hurry. He didn't look away. When we left the room, he lingered near the door, shoulders hunched like the truth had just settled into place. That, he said quietly, that was love, wasn't it? Yes, I answered. Love isn't always loud, but it shows up. It looks, it cares. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry I forgot. I touched his shoulder. You didn't forget. You just looked elsewhere for too long. He nodded, shame darkening his gaze. We can fix that, I added. We have time. He blinked rapidly, holding back emotion. Mom, he said softly, if I ever forget again, make me look. I squeezed his shoulder. If you ever forget me, look for my hands. He closed his eyes, absorbing each word like a vow. We continued pushing carts until the food was gone. Bryn handled the last trays, then stepped toward me with wet eyes. I was raised to care about the wrong kind of approval, she confessed. When Victor decides something, the rest of us follow. I thought fitting in was the same as belonging. She shifted, twisting her wedding ring nervously. But when I saw you help that woman, I understood. I've been living on the surface. It's a loud place, I said. Hard to hear your own heart there. She nodded, tears slipping freely. I want to learn how to look deeper. You're already starting. Her shoulders relaxed as though she'd been holding herself too tightly for too long. When the shift ended, Lucas drove us home. The city lights blurred past the windows. I rode in the back seat, letting them talk to each other. Small, fragile sentences rebuilding trust. When Lucas parked in my driveway, none of us moved at first. Night wrapped the house in a familiar quiet. I found something earlier, he said, reaching into his pocket. In my jacket. I'd forgotten about it. He held up a folded piece of paper, thin, worn at the edges from time and sweat. He handed it to me. It was my handwriting, a note I'd slipped into his coat years ago before a job interview. If you ever forget me, look for my hands. My breath hitched. You kept it? I asked. He nodded, voice rough. I didn't know why at the time. Now I do. I pressed the note to my chest. The porch light flickered, catching the tears I tried to blink away. Bryn spoke softly. We want you in our life, properly, without conditions. Lucas stepped closer, taking my hand with both of his. I want to show up, not just appear. I held his gaze. Presence is a commitment, I said. We'll honor it, he promised. I believed him, not because he said it, but because he showed it. Tonight in a hospice room, where love isn't photographed and hands tell the truth. He hugged me then, full, grounded, with gratitude replacing performance. Bryn wrapped her arms around us too, her presence no longer a barrier, but a bridge. Under the dim glow of the porch light, I saw what had been missing at that wedding. Not a seat, not a shout-out, but a look, a real look. A son seeing his mother and choosing her, not for optics, not for legacy, but for love. As they drove away, I stood alone only in body, not in heart. I traced the note once more, letting the words breathe. Hands remember, so do hearts, if given the chance. Inside, the quilt waited on the couch, one square still empty, not a gap, a future. Tomorrow, we would fill it together. The morning was cool, touched with the first hint of winter. Dew clung to the garden like tiny pearls. The hydrangeas, those quiet witnesses to my grief and growth, held their blue as if no season could drain their color. Lucas and Bryn arrived just after sunrise, hands linked in a way that spoke of chosen closeness, not obligation. Lucas carried a small folding stool. Bryn held a bouquet of the same blue hydrangeas from the wedding, not as decoration, but as recognition. We drove together to the cemetery where Caleb rested beneath oak trees that rustled with a slow breeze. Sunlight filtered through branches, scattering gold across the grass. I stepped forward, kneeling to brush away leaves from his headstone. "We brought you company," I whispered. Lucas set the stool beside me. Bryn laid the flowers down gently, arranging them with reverence. Then she stepped back to give us space. Lucas knelt on the other side of the headstone. His voice was soft. "Dad, I forgot how she teaches," he admitted. "Not with lectures, with how she lives." His eyes glistened. "I'm lucky she didn't give up on me." I placed my hand on Caleb's name carved in stone. "We didn't raise him to be perfect," I murmured. "We raised him to return." Lucas took a shaky breath, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. He placed it near the flowers. On it were 3 words, meaning over money, written in his handwriting. I felt my heart lift and ache at the same time. The lesson had taken root. Bryn returned then, touching Lucas's shoulder. "Your father would be so proud," she said, "of both of you." Before we left, I stood quietly, letting the wind wrap around me. Caleb wasn't gone. He had simply stepped into the unfinished square of the quilt, guiding us still. On the drive back, Lucas asked if we could stop at the library. He had signed up for the volunteer reading program. "You told me stories can change how people see each other," he said. "I want to help someone feel seen." Pride filled me like warmth from a hearth, not flashy, steady. Inside the library, children gathered in a corner room decorated with paper stars and hand-painted signs. Lucas took a seat in a small chair, knees higher than the table, and opened a picture book. His voice, gentle but sure, wrapped around the room like a blanket. Kids leaned in, captivated by someone who finally understood attention is a gift. Bryn and I watched through the window. She slipped her hand into mine. "Thank you," she said. "Not for the money, for the chance to do better." I nodded. We all get that chance, if we accept it. We walked out into the crisp air. The town square was waking up, bakeries opening, joggers passing by, ordinary life humming with quiet purpose. Later, at home, I unfolded Caleb's quilt across the dining table. The missing square waited patiently. I took a scrap of navy cloth from a drawer, the same shade as Lucas's old suit jacket from his first job interview. Using careful stitches, I added the piece. Not to erase the space Caleb left, but to honor what filled it. Growth, humility, and love found again. When I finished, the quilt rested complete, but still humble. A symbol that even the most wounded families can mend when the repair is done with intention. The doorbell rang. Lucas stood there with a small potted hydrangea in hand. "For your porch," he said, so I remembered to look up. I placed my palm against his cheek. "You're home," I whispered. He hugged me once more, this time not out of apology, but out of joy. Bryn joined us, full of the same sincerity. After they left, I carried the hydrangea to the porch and set it beside the rocking chair. Blue petals fluttered in the breeze like they knew the story and approved of its ending. As the day faded, I sat with a cup of tea, watching the world soften into dusk. The porch light flickered on, the same light that once shone over loneliness. Now it glowed over completion. I ran my fingers along the quilt draped around my shoulders. I looked at the flowers. I breathed in the calm. The grief that once felt like a locked gate had become a door gently ajar, letting healing step inside. Finally, I opened my laptop. No live stream this time. Instead, I drafted a message for the Foundation's first official community post. Dignity isn't given. It's protected quietly. If you ever feel unseen, come find us. We remember the hands that built this world. I saved the message, ready for tomorrow. I looked out at the blue hydrangeas swaying softly under the evening breeze and whispered into the calm, "It's never too late." The screen dimmed. The quilt stayed warm. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. By my son, by my community, and most importantly, by myself.